as far as the CFP, everybody knows I am not a fan of all these early, let's rank them, let's show you where they are, where they stand. There's still a lot of football to be played. To me, the bottom line is this. If Washington State goes 11-1, they will have a chance.
Good evening and welcome to Pac-12 After Dark. I am Erik Coleman here with Coach Nick Aliotti, here to discuss everything that happened in the Pac and to take you a little bit around the country in college football. Coach, Washington State just finished a wonderful victory at home, 49-28, a victory over the Utah State Aggies. What did you think about the Cougars and their victory, Coach?
You know, it was more of the same, young Erik. Washington State moved the ball. First of all, they opened the game on their first three drives, and they score. I think they only had four drives, maybe one at the last couple minutes in the first half, 4 or 5 drives in the first half, but they scored on their first three drives, were very efficient. John Mateer was John Mateer, throwing the ball very well, using his legs. And so I thought they played a good football game. Defensively, I would be a little concerned because Utah State scored 28 points, but Washington State continued and did take care of business to go, I believe now, 9-1.
Well, yes, Washington State's 8-1 right now. And, you know, they've done that 5 times in the history of their program. Coach, I was very impressed with the offense of Washington State. John Mateer just continued to be phenomenal, and he got the ball to Kyle Williams. 3 touchdowns for Kyle Williams. He was all over the place. They found ways to get him the ball. And I think for Washington State to be successful down the stretch, they're going to have to get the ball into their playmakers' hands. They're going to have to run the football, which they did, with Wayshawn Parker running for 149 yards. And they're going to have to pick things up on defense, Coach. You and I are both defensive guys, and it was a little frustrating watching Utah State run up and down the field and put points on the board. Yes, they allowed, that last touchdown was a garbage touchdown. There were some guys from the bench that got to play, but still, you don't like to see Washington State giving up that many points, giving up that many yards. So something they definitely have to clean up moving forward. But Coach, looking at the national spotlight, Washington State is ranked 21st in the country in the college football polls. There are some upsets this week. Where do you think Washington State will stand next week, and what do you think are their chances to move into the college football playoff if they win out?
First of all, I must mention Wayshawn Parker. He did have a very good game to piggyback on what you said. And Washington State ran the ball very well. They had to rush the ball for over 250 yards. Had a great job, great day rushing the ball. Now, I would predict with what happened today that Washington State will move somewhere between 17 and 15. I haven't really looked at it, but my guess is that they're going to be somewhere between 17 as high as 15. Moving forward, as far as the CFP, everybody knows I am not a fan of all these early, let's rank them, let's show you where they are, where they stand. There's still a lot of football to be played. To me, the bottom line is this. If Washington State goes 11-1, they will have a chance, a good chance. The odds of Washington State going 11-1, as I look at their schedule, are also very good. They still have to play those games. So all that being said, I like to wait till it shakes out. I think they'll move up decently, but unless they go 11-1, Erik, I don't think they can make it.
I agree with you, Coach, especially when you talk about popularity. Washington State, we're looking at week 11 in college football, and this is their first time being nationally ranked. So, not a lot of knowledge of Washington State around the country. And Coach, I think you and I, in the broadcast, from the Washington State games, may be the only people talking about John Mateer right now. And this is a guy who's second in the country in touchdowns behind Cam Ward. Cam Ward has 35 touchdowns. John Mateer is responsible for 33 touchdowns and just a phenomenal player, but not a lot of people talking about him. Not a lot of people talking about Washington State. I think it's going to be important that they continue to make statements when they play these teams. And they, of course, Coach, they cannot lose two games and be considered for this playoffs. They're going to have to make a splash running into the end of the season.
You made a great point, Erik, and I love doing this with you. You made a great point. John Mateer, if you really looked at it and you said, who's having the best year of quarterbacks in the country, John Mateer would be easily, and I'm being, what's the word? I'm not being generous enough towards John Mateer, but he would easily be named in the top 8 to 10 quarterbacks in the country, and statistically is probably in the top 3 or 4. And people don't know about this young man, and that's a shame because Washington State is having a season, and I really believe they'll win out if they take care of business. They'll win out, and unfortunately, I think the committee will view a 2-loss Big Ten team, a 2-loss SEC team, and that's a sad state of affairs. But because of who they play compared to who Washington State's played, that's going to be the case. But hey, besides Boise State, Washington is going to beat everybody else they play on their schedule, and that's all they can do. Schedule them,
Yep.
and they get a win against Texas Tech, and they got a good win against Washington. So, hey,
Hey, all you
we'll
can do is
see.
beat who's on your schedule, Coach.
Say that again.
All you can do is beat who's in front of you on your schedule.
Absolutely. So it'll be interesting when it's all said and done. Again, I've already said I'm not an advocate. I'm not a fan of all these early where it stands. I think the media and I think Joe Q fan really loves it. To me, until it's all said and done, then we stack them. Then we see where they are. Because as you can see already, what happened last week is already changed.
Yep.
I mean, Georgia's already not going to be in it. BYU was almost not in it, and they still got to play a couple games where Colorado or somebody could jump ahead of them, and Miami.
Yeah.
Between what happens with them and SMU may not be in it. So I think I made my point.
Yeah, a big stir up today in college football. But more importantly, Washington State continued their winning ways, moved to 8-1 with the win against Utah State. Make sure you stay with us because when we come back, we're going to talk about the Oregon State Beavers and their loss today against San Jose State. Stay close with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Pac-12 After Dark. Coach Nick Aliotti and I just got done talking about Washington State and their impressive victory against Utah State. Now, let's move to the other team in the pack, Oregon State Beavers, as they hosted San Jose State. Unfortunately for the Beavers, they ended up with a loss, losing 24-13. But new quarterback for Oregon State, Ben Gulbranson, had a solid performance, 24 for 37 for 292 yards in the air. A very different look from the Oregon State team that we've seen so far in the season, Coach. What do you think about Oregon State?
I thought that Ben Gulbranson gave the Beavers what you and I have been talking about for weeks. At least I have been stressing it. They got a down the field passing game. They had a passing game, in my opinion, that looked like they were a threat throwing the ball down the field. And I thought, other than right at the end, when maybe they were forcing it and pushing a little bit too much, and he threw two picks at the end, that they ran the ball pretty good with Hankerson and Allah. Ben Goldbranson gave them what they needed. Uh, in the passing game. It's the first time I felt like, hey, they can really throw it down the field. Uh, Walker had a very nice game catching the ball, had over 100 yards, and they didn't play a bad game. Now, conversely, they gave up. There was way more penalties than you usually see from an Oregon State football team because they have a lot of discipline. San Jose State had a few more explosion down the field passing plays than Oregon State usually gives up. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention this, Erik. I thought that for the first time, two decisions made by Coach Bray and Oregon State really hurt them in that football game. One, not kicking the field goal on fourth down, which would have gave them a 16-10 lead. And secondly, going for it on fourth down with over 8 minutes down by one score in the fourth quarter. I thought, I'm going to say it like I thought, and this is not second guess. I'm not saying this after the fact. I'm saying kick the field goal. I'm an advocate of putting points on the board, especially if it's fourth and more than four, and you don't need a touchdown. And with 8:20 something, give your defense, have faith in your defense. So those two decisions, basically, because it would have come down to the end of the game where Oregon State would have just needed a touchdown and could have won the game. Those two decisions cost them the game.
I agree with you 100%, Coach. And I was screaming in the touchdown room watching this game, especially after that fourth down. 8 minutes left in the game. You go for it on fourth down. I thought that was unnecessary. I thought they should have pinned San Jose State down back in their own territory, gave their defense an opportunity, flip the field, and then see what happens from there. But you took it out of the defense's hands at that point in time, and that was one of the rare times I saw Coach put his team in a bad situation. But I'm going to go back to what you were saying about Ben Goldbranson. I thought he gave the offense a completely different look. I mean, at the beginning of the game, Oregon State was running the football. They were committed to running the football. And when they ran a play action, everyone on that San Jose State defense had to honor the play action. And they were able to get down the field, get some chunk plays down the field, and it looked like a completely different team. And I can only imagine what this Oregon State team would look like if they would have had that passing threat earlier in the season. I think they would have been in a far better position than what they are right now. But Coach, there was a lot of controversy in this game as well. There was the San Jose State's coach was angry about the penalties at the end of the game. I thought there were a couple pass interference calls that were controversial, whether it be the one that Jordan knocked down. I thought that was a great play by him. They called PI, and then they called the offensive pass interference when Nick Nash of San Jose State caught the touchdown when the DB fell down. So a little bit of inconsistency, but there's some room to grow for the refs in that matchup. But Coach, we got to talk about San Jose State. The nation's number one receiver, Nick Nash, had a fantastic game, 6 catches for 161. Oregon State's defense has continued to digress. But I will shoot him some bail. They were playing against the nation's number one receiver.
Yeah, Oregon State still can make a bowl game. Okay, they still can make a bowl game and get 6 wins, which under Coach Bray would be a good first year. They've hit a spot here where they haven't been the same team for whatever reason, and I know they've had some injuries, but I do believe that Goldbranson gives them an extra element that is going to help them in their remaining games. I really do. And now, people got to understand that Erik, young Mr. Erik Coleman, and Coach Al are pulling both for Oregon State and Washington State. We really are. But we got to call it like it is. And those two decisions, I keep coming back to those. those really hurt their team today. And it's the first time that I don't want to use the word panic because I'm not in those meeting rooms and I don't know what that coach knows. I may not know something, but, and I don't like to second guess, but again, I'm not second guessing. I think those hurt his team today.
Yeah, I agree. And and one another positive thing that I will say about Oregon State is getting the ball to Trent Walker early and often was seemed to be a recipe. And 11 catches for 151 yards. It was great to see Trent Walker get a lot of opportunities and continue to show what type of receiver he is. But Coach, we're gonna wrap this thing up.